Let me ask you something that's been sitting in the back of my mind for years as someone who studied the neuroscience of aging. Why do we accept cognitive decline as inevitable? Why do we sit quietly in front of our doctors, nod our heads, and take the prescription when the research published in the world's most respected peer-reviewed journals is telling us something completely different? And here's the thing. The most powerful brain repair window you have doesn't happen in a clinic. It doesn't come from a $200 a month supplement stack. It happens every single night while you sleep. And what you eat in the 2 hours before you close your eyes is either working for your brain or quietly accelerating its breakdown. I'm going to walk you through exactly how that mechanism works. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you the precise protocol, the exact compounds, and the optimal timing that the science actually supports. Stay with me because what I'm about to show you fundamentally changes how you think about your brain. Here's what most people over 60 are completely getting wrong. They've been told, implicitly, culturally, sometimes even medically, that memory loss, brain fog, and cognitive decline are just part of the deal, part of getting older, something you manage, not something you reverse. But the emerging science from institutions like the National Institute on Aging, from peer-reviewed journals like Alzheimer's and Dementia and Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience, is drawing a very different conclusion. The aging brain is not a broken machine. It is a machine being starved of the right inputs. And here's where it gets fascinating. Your brain has a dedicated nighttime repair system, a biological night shift that, if properly supported, can do things that no pharmaceutical on the market has yet been able to replicate cleanly. Clear toxic waste, rebuild damaged cellular machinery, consolidate memory, and reduce the neuroinflammation that is, increasingly, being recognized as the root driver of Alzheimer's disease. The question isn't whether your brain can repair itself. It absolutely can. The question is whether you're giving it what it needs to do the job. Let me explain the core biology here because this is where conventional health advice completely falls apart. Inside your brain, inside every neuron, there are tiny structures called mitochondria. These are your brain cells' power generators. They produce the energy your neurons need to fire, to form memories, to think clearly. Now, as we age, some of these generators become damaged. They malfunction. Instead of producing clean energy, they produce reactive oxygen species, inflammatory byproducts that degrade the very cells they're supposed to be powering. Your brain has a natural system for dealing with this. It's called mitophagy, mitochondrial autophagy, essentially your brain's internal quality control. When mitophagy is working, damaged mitochondria get flagged, removed, and replaced. When mitophagy fails, which it increasingly does after 60, those damaged generators pile up, trigger chronic neuroinflammation, and create the exact cellular environment in which Alzheimer's disease takes root and grows. This is not speculative biology. This is what the literature is clearly showing. And here's the critical insight that the conventional model completely misses. What you eat in the evening directly determines whether that mitophagy process fires effectively overnight. Simultaneously, your brain runs another critical nighttime operation, the glymphatic system. This is the brain's dedicated waste clearance network, and it operates almost exclusively during deep, slow-wave sleep. During this phase, cerebrospinal fluid is literally pumped through the interstitial spaces between brain cells, sweeping out amyloid beta plaques, tau protein tangles, and metabolic debris. The exact compounds that, when they accumulate, define Alzheimer's disease at the pathological level. If you disrupt deep sleep through blood sugar spikes, inflammatory compounds, alcohol, poor nutrition timing, you interrupt this entire clearance process. The garbage accumulates, night after night, year after year, until the system starts to break down in ways that become visible as cognitive decline. But here's the other side of that equation. If you go to bed having given your brain the specific molecular inputs it needs to deepen that sleep architecture and supercharge that cellular housekeeping, you amplify the entire repair cycle. That's the lever most people don't even know exists. And here's what's particularly urgent if you're over 60. By the time you reach your mid-60s, melatonin production has dropped by more than 50% compared to your 30s. That's not a minor dip. That's a fundamental change in your brain's ability to initiate and maintain deep, restorative sleep. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the molecule your brain uses to grow new neural connections, strengthen existing ones, and protect neurons from dying, also declines significantly after 60. Your gut microbiome shifts in ways that reduce the production of key neurochemicals. The margin for error narrows on every front simultaneously. This is precisely why targeted, timing-conscious nutritional intervention stops being optional and starts being essential. And the research has identified specific compounds, found in foods you can buy at any grocery store, that address each of these declining systems directly. The first compound I want to talk about comes from pomegranate. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pomegranate is a fruit. How seriously should I take this? Let me walk you through the science. Pomegranates contain complex polyphenolic compounds called elagitannins and ellagic acid. When these compounds reach your colon, specific species of gut bacteria, particularly those in the Gordonobacter and Elagibacter genera, convert them into a metabolite called urolithin A. And urolithin A is, based on the 2024 literature published in Alzheimer's and Dementia by researchers from the University of Copenhagen, collaborating with the National Institute on Aging, one of the most potent natural activators of mitophagy currently identified in the scientific literature. The study used multiple Alzheimer's mouse models and found that urolithin A improved learning and memory, reduced neuroinflammation, and actively restored the brain's mitophagy process and lysosomal function. The researchers found its effectiveness comparable to NAD supplementation, one of the most expensive and widely discussed compounds in longevity medicine today. A second 2024 paper in the journal Nutrients confirmed that urolithin A activates SIRT1, the so-called longevity gene, which governs DNA repair, inflammation control, and cellular regeneration across multiple organ systems. Here's the key timing insight. The conversion from elagitannins to urolithin A takes several hours. When you eat pomegranate 1 to 2 hours before sleep, the urolithin A production peaks precisely during the early stages of deep sleep, synchronizing your nutritional input with your brain's own biological repair schedule. That is not a coincidence. That is strategy. The second compound family is anthocyanins, and the richest, most bioavailable source is blueberries. Now, what makes blueberry anthocyanins, particularly cyanidin and delphinidin, uniquely valuable is something most flavonoid-rich foods can't claim. They cross the blood-brain barrier. That protective membrane that filters almost everything from entering the brain, blueberry flavonoids move through it. Once inside, they do something remarkable. A 2021 study published in Neurology, the flagship journal of the American Academy of Neurology, analyzed the dietary patterns of tens of thousands of adults over years and found that anthocyanins from blueberries, blackberries, and cherries were associated with a 24% reduction in cognitive decline. And the mechanism identified was direct upregulation of BDNF, the brain's fertilizer, in the hippocampus, which is both the memory formation center of the brain and the first region meaningfully damaged in Alzheimer's disease. A 2023 clinical study in Frontiers in Psychology showed that polyphenol-rich blueberry extract produced significant improvements in episodic memory in older adults with mild cognitive impairment, linked specifically to BDNF upregulation and activation of CREB, the protein directly responsible for converting short-term memories into long-term ones. And timing matters here too. Research shows that cerebral blood flow increases measurably from flavanol-rich foods with peak effects around 2 hours after ingestion. Eat blueberries 90 minutes before sleep, and you're creating a peak in BDNF and cerebral blood flow that coincides precisely with the brain's most active memory consolidation phase. You're not just eating fruit, you're pharmacologically priming your brain for its nightly repair cycle. Before I get to the third compound, and this one genuinely surprises people, I want to stop here for a second. If what I'm sharing is changing the way you think about your brain health, I need you to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell right now, because every week I'm breaking down research like this, the stuff buried in peer-reviewed journals that never makes it into mainstream health coverage, and I don't want you to miss a single one. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. This community spans dozens of countries, and I want to know who you are. Now, the third compound, kiwi fruit, and I want you to hear me out on this one because the mechanism here is not what most people expect. Your brain cannot perform any of the repair processes I've described, mitophagy, glymphatic clearance, BDNF-driven memory consolidation, without deep, high-quality, slow-wave sleep. That's the biological foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. And here's the problem. After 60, melatonin production collapses. Your ability to enter and sustain slow-wave sleep diminishes. The glymphatic system doesn't activate fully. Memory consolidation is truncated. Brain repair becomes partial at best. Kiwi fruit addresses this at the root. It contains naturally occurring melatonin, approximately 24 micrograms per gram, as well as measurable serotonin, which is melatonin's direct biochemical precursor. It also provides tryptophan, phenylalanine, and glutamic acid, the amino acid precursors to serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. And critically, kiwi contains an enzyme called actinidin, which enhances amino acid absorption in the gut, creating an earlier and more sustained peak of neurochemical precursors in the bloodstream. A 2023 study published in Frontiers in Nutrition confirmed that kiwi consumption with the evening meal significantly increased urinary concentrations of both the serotonin metabolite, 5-HIAA, and the melatonin metabolite, 6-sulfatoxymelatonin, with measurable improvements in morning alertness and sleep quality. And a landmark study in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults who ate 2 kiwi fruits 1 hour before bed regularly experienced increased time in slow-wave deep sleep, the exact stage where glymphatic clearance is most active, where memory consolidation happens, and where brain cell repair operates at its highest biological rate. Follow the chain. Kiwi eaten before bed. Serotonin rises, converts to melatonin. Deep sleep initiates, glymphatic system activates, amyloid plaques and tau proteins are cleared. BDNF from the blueberries is driving memory consolidation. Urolithin A from the pomegranate is running mitophagy on your damaged mitochondria. 3 fruits, 3 distinct but complementary biological mechanisms, all operating in synchrony with your body's natural repair window. Now let me give you the practical protocol, because I don't want you to leave this with only theory. 1 to 2 hours before sleep, eat half to 1 full pomegranate's worth of arils, the seed pods. If fresh pomegranate isn't accessible, 4 to 6 ounces of 100% pure pomegranate juice with no added sugar works. Pair it with a small amount of healthy fat, a few walnuts, a tablespoon of almond butter, because the polyphenols absorb better in the presence of fat. Additionally, eat half a cup to a full cup of fresh or frozen blueberries. Frozen is equally effective and in some studies slightly higher in antioxidant content because they're harvested and frozen at peak ripeness. You can eat them plain or mix into a small serving of plain Greek yogurt for the added tryptophan and probiotic benefit. Separately, 1 hour before bed specifically, eat 2 medium green kiwi fruits. Leave the skin on if you can tolerate it. The skin contains 3 times the fiber and additional polyphenols. If not, blend the whole fruit into a small smoothie. These aren't exotic, expensive, or complicated. This is precision nutrition timed to your brain's biological repair schedule. And if you also want to add tart cherry juice, Montmorency variety, a 2025 systematic review confirms significant improvements in sleep duration and reductions in inflammatory markers including CRP and IL-6. The synergistic effect with kiwi on melatonin pathways is real and documented. One final note on blood sugar. All 3 of these fruits have low to moderate glycemic loads in the portions described. Blueberries around a glycemic index of 53, kiwi around 50, pomegranate seeds approximately 18. If you're diabetic or highly insulin resistant, pairing with Greek yogurt or a small handful of walnuts will blunt any glucose response and maintain stable insulin through the night, which is itself neuroprotective. Here's the bottom line. Your brain is not passively aging. Every single night, it is either repairing or declining, and the chemical environment you create in those final hours before sleep is the deciding variable. After 60, the systems that drive repair, glymphatic clearance, BDNF production, mitophagy, melatonin synthesis, are all under pressure simultaneously. The conventional medical model doesn't address this window. It doesn't talk about food timing, mitophagy, or the gut-brain axis as primary levers for cognitive protection. But the peer-reviewed science absolutely does, and the tools it's pointing to are not prescriptions. They are blueberries, pomegranate, and kiwi, eaten with intention at the right time for the right biological reasons. This is what preventive neuroscience actually looks like in practice. Not a pill, not a protocol costing you hundreds of dollars a month. Food, timing, and the understanding of how your brain works. That's the edge most people never get. If this changed the way you think about your brain, smash that like button and subscribe. Your brain will thank you for every video you don't miss.